Yeah, so I'm James Bates. I've been in the fishing industry since I was 16, I suppose. And from Fruits of the Sea, I'm one of the company directors. We have a cockle boat in Leigh-on-Sea, and we also have a processing plant in Essex where we can the cockles.
Lovely, good. So welcome, as I say, and our first question will be, James, do you have any thoughts, comments or suggestions on the actual proposed statement, our actual vision statement that was in the report on page 9 or today on page 4? Any comments on that, if you will?
I thought the vision statement was quite good, to be fair, nice and concise. The only thing that I'd like to see in it is preserving the centuries of tradition that have gone into the fishery, that have brought the fishery to where it is today.
Right, no, that's lovely. Okay, John.
Okay, James. Question 2, which is which set of options would you support? The suction dredge only option, or the suction dredge and small scale fishery? And what would you consider to be a small scale fishery?
Right, I mean, I found the options to be quite pigeonholing at this point. I thought that possibly the fishing type should be left open until the fishing areas are decided, and I found it quite difficult because some of the options I could see the benefits of, but I thought, but you can't say that you want like drag dredging, or because I think, like, my preference is a Bermuda option, but I do think that the smaller boats would benefit in being part of that, and they aren't going to be able to set themselves up in an efficient way to do the suction dredging.
Okay, all right. I think. Yep.
Okay.
Richard. Which do you think is the best option and why? And if you could just hold it up briefly for the record for the camera.
Yeah, so I think the Bermuda option is the best option, but not necessarily, like I said in my previous answer, not necessarily just suction outside of the main fishing area, because the two coastal areas would benefit from some smaller boats being able to participate with drag dredges or other experimental gear. And you also asked me how large the small scale fishery. I think 10 to 15 boats could make it viable, but any more than that, and it swamps the area and it makes it difficult to open areas like we've had before in the past. You can't open the smaller areas that could be targeted because there's too many boats and the fishing effort will be too great.
Okay, sorry, can you just clarify that? 10 to 15 small scale boats?
Yeah, maximum 15, I would say.
Yeah, okay, got
Maximum.
that, thank you.
Okay, John.
Yeah, well, question 4 is, would you like to comment on any other options? So we're looking at the options in front of you on the chart. Is there anything different you'd like to suggest? Or any options on the small scale? Or, it's very difficult because this question is almost answered beforehand, but sometimes one or two of the people have had a different option to what's been suggested altogether.
Yep. Okay, I mean, one of the options that I think is quite dangerous in some ways is the hand raking option. It opens up not just safety dangerous, because there is a safety issue to consider. I mean, the small boats go out, they fill up with a ton or a ton and a half, depending on what they're coded for. And sometimes when they bring them back in rough weather, even the coded boats that are geared up to be as safe as you like, it's dangerous. And I think it also opens up a safety issue in so much as from poaching, because people then have a viable way of saying, oh no, they came from this hand-raked area, when they could be poached from anywhere within the fishery. And it's a very difficult thing to police. And this has been seen in fisheries all over the country.
Okay, John.
Thank you.
Richard.
Yeah. Finally, is there anything else that you'd like to say or add that not covered previously?
Yeah, I mean, one of my main concerns with the report is that it starts with, within the normal TEFCO area, there will be 15 to 20 licences. There's no mention of 14 to 20. There's like an immediate bias that there must be additional licences issued, which I find it really difficult to understand, because until this point, the fishery for the last 27 years, additional licences could be issued if the TAC allowed. But I don't understand that when the regulating order finishes at the strike of midnight, the TAC now allows for 15 or 16. I think it'd be more prudent to start with 14 again and then consider issuing more when the TAC allows. I don't think it's something that an immediate change needs to happen because someone feels like there needs to be a change. I don't think that's a sensible way forward.
What is your main concern? You just think that it being going up from 14 to 15 is unsustainable, or?
Yes. So the problem is everything's based on TAC per licence, obviously. But TAC is quite a hard thing because you can say, oh, you had 40 trips of 12 tonnes, let's say. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you got the same as you got from your 12 tonnes the previous week. I mean, the season in 2021, our yields were down a third. So even though there were 40 trips, approximately, we actually only ended up with sort of late 20s because the yield was so low. So comparatively on an average year, it was a very bad year as far as quantity of meat that we produced from the fishery. And it's hard to demonstrate that just looking at TAC. That's something the industry have to feed back, I realise, but...
Yeah, it's getting that information coming back, isn't it?
I mean, would you even consider that 14 is too many then, what you just said?
It's been sustainable to this point, but sometimes, yes, there have been times when 14 were too many. There was a year when we had 25 to 27 trips, and it was quite a devastating year for the fishery, and if that had gone on for many years, then it could be a problem. But the track record shows that with the ups comes the downs, and it balances out over time. But to issue additional licences that then can't be withdrawn later is very dangerous for the established fishery that's already there.
But if they could be withdrawn later, right, if the status of the licence was changed, do you think then it would be reasonable to be able to make sure that happens, that you could hold them or issue them as necessary?
There's pros and cons to that because no one is then going to invest hard-earned money back into the fishery thinking that their licence could be taken away the next year. So far, we all roll the dice and we invest in the boats thinking that the next year, and the processing all the way down the line. But it's a very difficult thing to call.
No, lovely. Thank you, James. Okay, right.
Yeah.
Is there anything else that you think you'd like to say to us about it? Because naturally, we're trying to make this a sustainable fishery all the way through for the industry, so that young people like yourself and your children and so on can all come into it, and it's got a future. How would you see that we can bring that about?
I mean, it's very important to make sure it is sustainable so that the younger generation can get involved, because my children are very excited by it. They've sort of grown up around it, it's generation to generation. No, I mean, time will tell what happens with the fishery, but it's important that the status quo, that we don't lose what's there already. And just change for change's sake, that's what worries me.
Right, thank you very much. Okay,
Good.
thanks for coming along.
Thank you for your time.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks for that. Yeah, have a safe journey back. Thanks, James.